Welcome to The Hook with Sarah Larsen. I am your host, Sarah Larsen, and I am super excited today to introduce Kerry Walsh. And Kerry, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us what it is. Tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here. So I am Kerry Walsh. I'm the owner of an organization called Women, Wine, and Wellness. And I have dedicated my life to helping women discover their true identity and purpose. I'm a personal development coach and mentor. And I have spent the last 10 years empowering women to build their self-confidence and take control of their lives through using what I started out as personal training and boot camp to now personalized private coaching. And I'm a certified strategic life coach and practitioner. And I have all kind of fun modalities that I use, and one of them being human design that you and I are connected at.
Yes, one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, it's one of mine too. And so I have lots of experience in different, modalities and with my clients, and I really meet them where they are to make sure that I'm bringing the best tools for them. And my main goal is to really help them understand their purpose beyond being a wife, a mother, and a businesswoman. Because really, when it comes down to it, it is about us. It is about you. It is about who you are and who you are showing up and the energy that you're showing up every day. And we tend to forget that. And so I really bring kind of a different and fun way about getting there. And on a personal level, things that I really love to do just on my own time is I love hanging out with my husband. I love my husband, so I love hanging out with him.
Great.
And I have 2 adult children that are my stepchildren that we are very close with, and we love hanging out with them. And then I have my little fur babies and my little dog. So I love to travel. We spend a lot of time traveling with friends and family. And the main thing is just continuing on my own journey that I'm living my best life.
That is fantastic introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So let's go back in time a little bit. We'll eventually get back to where you are now, but I want to start with, what was your childhood like? Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I still live in Houston, Texas, but I grew up here in the Cypress area. It's a suburb of Houston. And I grew up in the suburbs, went to, just little school here. Well, it wasn't little, but went to a little school here. And we lived in a nice little neighborhood. And I remember as a child, like playing on the streets, and we had a street with girls. We have a lot of girls and a lot of boys, and the boys were always playing football. The girls were always hanging out. I remember playing Barbies at my friend's house. I remember prank calling each other. I had a really fun childhood as far as that goes. The memories of playing out on the street till the street lights came on, definitely brings back a lot of good memories there. As a child, I remember feeling kind of a loner and left out, even though I was always in the crowd, but I still always kind of felt a little bit different than everyone. And over time that compounded, and we'll kind of get into that later. But yeah, the memories of playing on the streets is a lot of fun. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, I know, thinking back to childhood, when we don't really, I don't at least think a lot about it. So I think revisiting that and just thinking about good or bad things that you maybe haven't thought about in quite a while.
Yeah. Well, and speaking, I was an only child till I was 8. And then all of a sudden my world was rocked.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And very blessed. I have a brother that we're very close, but we're 8 years in age difference. The ebbs and flows of life, we would get really close. And then, obviously when he was a little baby and it was all new, it was I was not very pleased, but I learned to love him and have a good relationship with him. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was a difficult time. I remember, I mean, all the attention was on me, and then all of a sudden it wasn't,
And
so
that's a long stretch to have the attention be on you and then suddenly have your world completely changed.
yes, yes, for sure. And yeah, and both my parents worked, so we lived comfortably. I never did without. I don't ever remember doing without or anything like that. And I know that that's a blessing,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of people who do without. And I was grateful. My dad always, he would work multiple jobs if he had to, for us to, have family trips every year and do that kind of thing. And that being said, we definitely, my parents ended up divorced, and we definitely did not have like, you know, white picket fence family. But as I've grown older, I realized that nobody does, you know.
Right.
And I love the lessons of my life that I've had, because they have made me who I am today. So I have no regrets at how, my parents ended up divorced, and now they're with the spouses that they're with. I get to celebrate, holidays multiple times and with more people. And, it's just really looking at life, the silver lining of the circumstances. And I have a good relationship with both. We've definitely had rocky times, but
Good.
uh, love where I'm at with my parents right now in my life. And I'm 52, just, I don't mind sharing that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just at that time in life now that, like, I just really appreciate even the very, very difficult, hard times, the dark times.
It's good that you can look back and reframe that
Mhm.
what could be considered a negative and turn it
Yeah,
to look back as
for
you
sure.
came out with some good relationships and things like that. How old were you
Yeah,
when your parents divorced?
I was 19,
Oh,
so pretty impressionable age.
yeah.
And I was already angry. I was an angry child. I was rebellious and angry.
Well, you
Um,
mentioned that you felt kind of like an outsider. How did that affect your teenage years? We know that's always a traumatic time frame
yeah,
in general.
yeah. I honestly, looking back, I just always felt different. Even as an adult, but as a teenager, it really created. I really pushed away from the support system that I had, and went down a lot of roads that were not serving me at all. At the time, I now understand they were serving me, but probably not in a healthy way.
Right.
But it's what I knew at the time. And I was just very angry, and I felt alone, and no confidence, no self-esteem. It reflected in my grades, it reflected in my relationships with my family. I lived with my grandparents for several years because my parents were just like, just what gives. So we went through some really pretty tough times. Um, and God, I haven't thought about that in a long time either. But we went because we're just in such a different place, which is the beauty of revisiting.
Right. Yes.
Um,
Being able to look back and see how far you've come from that time.
Yeah, yeah. But like I was always looking for love, looking for the boyfriend, looking, just really looking in all the wrong places, because I
Mhm.
was not ever looking within. And
Yeah.
I now obviously I completely understand that. And that's how, I live my life helping other women to do the same. And I've been through that journey, and um as far as I've gotten, and still on it. And I really believe for the rest of my life, I will be on that.
I do think it's a lifelong journey
For
of
sure.
self-reflection, and there's always something new
Mhm.
to gain from looking back,
Yeah. And I
reflecting
remember
on
as a
some of your
teenager just
journeys.
thinking, I remember thinking it was just a lonely world and just so negative. I literally it's like I just didn't at the time feel like I had the ability to even think in a positive way. And a lot, the environment at home wasn't great. There was a lot of, fighting and yelling, and it just wasn't a great environment. And it wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't great. It wasn't the best and it wasn't the worst. I mean, it could have been a whole lot worse. My parents
Yeah.
loved us kids and loved our family the way they knew how. And they still love us, and they love us differently now than they did then. The way that they show it. And then the way that as we've matured, as my brother, speaking me, my brother and I have matured in life and grown in life, we see we're just, nobody's perfect. And I appreciate those sides of my parents. And I really, like I said earlier, I really believe it helped mold me into the person that I am today to do the work that I'm actually doing and impacting the lives that I'm impacting.
Yeah. So did you go to college?
I did, and I did not do well. School was not like, I hated school, hated it. And I say that I feel bad saying that, but I truly hated school. Like, I did not do well in school.
What was it that you hated?
I did not like I did not like authority. I did not like learning things that I had no interest in. I love learning if it's something I'm interested in. I had great teachers. I had some really good teachers that really helped lift me up in ways. Like, I remember some specifically that I felt smart in their class, and I felt, like they helped that light in me shine. And that's, congratulations to all those teachers out there that can do that, because I just, knowing where I was at that time in my life, and someone being able to pull that out of me and help me to see that I was a good person and that I had ability to, to do, and my being was more than enough. Even though I didn't believe that at the time, I know that those teachers had an impact. And so I enjoyed the teachers. I enjoyed the people. I just didn't enjoy the work the interest in things that I didn't really care for. History, English, it's kind of boring to me, but some people, that lights them up.
Right. So for some people that's exciting. So what were the subjects that you found exciting?
I loved math. I loved like my mind, just the puzzle piece of that. I loved math. And I loved art, the creative, I can't draw a stick person to save my life, but I did love art. And that's actually something I'm diving a little bit into, starting to dive into to bring out creativeness in myself.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And I loved kind of just the fun classes, like I did not enjoy English. I don't enjoy reading. I still don't enjoy reading. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Reading puts me to sleep. So, but what I did enjoy was the classes that were interactive. And I think that probably had to do with a lot of the teachers too, because I had a government and economics class that is not a subject that really interests me, but I loved that class because Mr. Trammell was, and unfortunately he's gone now, but he brought the class alive. Like I sat in the front row, like I was one to always sit in the back. I sat in the front row and he made it interesting to me.
Right.
And he made it fun and he got the class engaged and he really had a way of helping you to see your light shine.
I think definitely the instructor or teacher has a lot to do with how we engage with some subjects that may not have otherwise been of interest. You mentioned history, and I have to tell you that that was a class that I talk about falling asleep reading. So painful. I'm definitely a math girl as well, although I did enjoy English to a degree. I love to read and write, and so that also was something that I loved, but definitely I get the math.
I will say, as I've gotten older, reading, like I said, if it's a subject, I read a lot of books on business, self-care, like, just the whole journey of evolving into wherever it is I'm going with, peeling back all the layers. When I dive into something, I pretty much dive in head first with it and learn everything I can about it.
So after college, where did you go? What did you end up studying?
So I only went for a year and a half.
Okay.
Did not finish.
Yeah.
I was like, I did not make the grades. It was a waste of money for me to be there.
Right.
So I ended up coming home, going into getting a job in the corporate world. Like you, I have kind of the mind of like systems and efficiency and all that kind of stuff. And I love that. Probably the math, we probably have some parallels there with all that. And I did not know that about myself at the time. I can look back and see that now. But I went into the corporate world as an administrative assistant, just, first actually as a receptionist, and then answering phones and what have you, and really just doing administrative work. And along the way, just kind of found my path of understanding, or other people really seeing in me, that I had this gift of systemizing and, nowadays automating. And, back then we didn't have a whole lot of automation,
Right.
Not like we do now with technology. But I had the ability to see that, and to the overview and see, the end piece of it. And so over time, I worked my way up into management positions, and worked in the oil and gas business. I worked at Arthur Andersen way back when the Enron Arthur Andersen thing happened. And that, honestly, I loved my job there. Like, that was where I really started to shine and understand. And I was in finance there. I didn't have the degree, but I helped to the degree that I could. And I learned a lot there. I had great mentors there. And then when the whole Enron thing fell through, went to Ernst & Young and worked in the tax department there, and then went out to the client side at British Petroleum. And then they ended up insourcing us. And so I ended up there. And once I left there, I got laid off there, and then I went and worked for a small oil and gas company. That's where I went into management position of an office manager, and overseeing over several offices, and really it was a small company, like a mom and pop. And so I really brought all their systems together, and that was fun. I loved that piece of it. And I also worked for the owner of the company. I was kind of his right hand girl with all that kind of stuff. And I loved it. And then I decided to one day up and become a personal trainer.
Wow, that's a huge transition.
It was huge. Yeah. And it happened beautifully. I got certified, and I started working as a personal trainer before and after work to see if it really lit me up. And it did. And I started burning myself out because I was working so many hours. And I went in and told him I was leaving. It was November 14th. I will never forget it. And that I was leaving at the end of the month. And he was taken back. He had no clue,
Yeah.
And but it was beautiful because I was able to transition out of that position while I was building my business. And so I was able to help him, and make sure everything was situated there. And then as I was building what I was building. So
wow,
it was beautiful. Yeah.
That's so awesome. It's interesting listening to your growth through that, because going back to that, like both having that sort of math and systems mindset, it is so similar to my own story of starting out like as a receptionist and, moving up and creating systems and things like that.
That's funny.
And then, getting into management. I got into sales because I was in the mortgage industry. So I got into sales on the wholesale level, whereas you got into managing in oil, gas. I was in the mortgage industry for 20 years. I don't know how long you were in oil and gas, but
a long time.
It's really interesting that we had such parallels in that sense.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I know it's a big transition, but what made you decide to get certified in personal training?
I have to give full credit to the trainer that I was working with at the time. And I just, in the last several months, went to her retirement party at British Petroleum. We had a gym. They were way ahead of their time with corporate wellness because of her. Sheila, I was married to my previous husband at the time. And I went through a divorce and went through a lot of life changes, and she was really there for me and really helped me focus on me. And that's when I really fell in love with working out and just how good I felt. And that's really where my journey began,
Yeah.
that many years ago. And so she was a huge part. She saw something in me that I did not see. And that was the gift that I have of just helping women. And just now what I understand, kind of, I have this intuition of helping, of just being able to see into people and circumstances and, what have you. And I didn't see it at the time. She clearly saw that in me. And so I loved working out, was very passionate about it and very dedicated and committed and, just always there. And so we went to dinner one night after I had left BP, and I was no longer working out with her, but I was working with another trainer who also saw the same in me. And I was like, maybe I should do this. And so we went to dinner one night over a bottle of wine, and I was like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to get certified. And I did.
That's
So
great.
that's what pushed me that direction. Yeah.
And did you start directly into owning your own personal training business?
I did. So at the time I was working out with another trainer that had a home, like part of her home was set up as a gym.
Okay.
And in our home, we have a detached garage, and behind that was a game room, a fairly good sized game room. And so we took the pool table out, sold that. I got equipment, put it in there, like made my own gym, and still have it to this day. Have no excuse. And went in there and started doing private personal training with women only. A couple of men that I knew personally, but I just wasn't comfortable with
anyone.
that. Yeah. I mean, I was here by myself. My husband at the time was still working, and just wasn't really comfortable with that. So worked with women and in a personal environment. And I did that for a while. And then shortly after I did that, I added my boot camp. And so that's been almost 10 years ago. I'm coming up on 10 years with that. So it's been a very big part of my growth, my journey. And
how was the transition? So I like to talk about disruption, and obviously that was a disruption of your career.
Yes.
One
and
that
my
you
marriage.
chose, one
and
that
my
you
marriage.
And the marriage.
Yeah.
How did that play out?
Let me just start by saying my husband has always been 100% supportive.
That's great.
And it was hard on the marriage. He was supportive because he wanted to support me in what I wanted to do. It wasn't what he wanted me to do, but he was always supportive, and I'm grateful for that. But it was hard because when I wasn't bringing in the money that I went from, I took a pay cut. Let me just say that. I took a pay cut.
Yeah.
And that was tough. I mean, that's going to be tough on no matter whatever the change is.
Yeah.
But he wanted to support me, and I think financially it just became hard for a while. And so, that was probably the hardest part, so but as far as supporting, that's never been an issue.
Well, that financial strain, was it strain, or was it just an adjustment to not being something that he pictured?
Right. Yeah.
Identity shift for you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, because I literally was like, oh, so this is what I want to do. I mean, like, it kind of came for him, it came out of nowhere.
Right.
And I had no business sense. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I say that for all those people out there that are running a business, starting a business, that they're scrambling and it's messy, and I had no clue what I was getting into. I had no clue that just the legal things that had to be done, and just setting I had zero. I literally had no idea what I was getting into. And back then, even it's hard to imagine, but back then there was like very few like email systems that did automations and stuff like this is over 10 years ago.
Mhm.
There's so much more out there now at tool wise technology to
Yes.
help people. We didn't have any of that. And coaching is so much more, I mean, like acceptable, and people know what coaches are
It's
for
so
the most.
common now.
Yeah, it's more mainstream. Where back then, I remember the first time I told my husband I was going to hire a coach, and he was like, "For what?" It was an investment in me and in my business, and I've learned a lot along the way, and a lot of trial and error, and a lot of money spent that probably didn't have to spend, but on technology things. And I definitely chased after those shiny object syndrome. I mean, I had the shiny object syndrome big time.
Yeah.
But I look back now and there's a lot of lessons that I learned through that. And I'm actually able to help people that are in business now with
Right.
things of that nature. It's not my expertise, but I definitely can give guidance when I
Yeah.
have a client
Just
that,
you have the experience of having gone through it. I think
yeah,
it's so interesting that I think a lot of people, my husband is one of these. He always says we had a business that he had started just before we met. And he always says he would have never, had he made a business plan, he never would have started that business.
yeah, oh, 100%. I am with him on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot and it's not. And I say that because it's been a long journey to get where I'm at. And I will tell you, I am sitting in a seat that I am very grateful, and I have worked very hard to get at, worked harder than I probably necessarily needed to.
Mhm.
Could have made some different decisions along the way, but that's part of life, right?
It is. You
Is
learned lessons
learning
from
from
it,
that.
right?
Yeah. And I am super grateful where I'm at today. And I have definitely found where I belong and what my purpose is. And it took me digging into myself over the years to get here.
Yeah.
My idea of where I was 10 years ago and what I thought I would be doing, it doesn't even look the same. It looks completely
Right.
different.
If you got into fitness and thinking that that's where you were going to be, and now you're in life coaching, tell us more. So, how did you come across your Women, Wine, and Wellness organization? I know you
Yeah.
were not the founder.
No,
You just bought it a few years ago.
less than a year
Less than
ago.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back in 2019, in February 2019, I opened a chapter here in Cyprus. So um, I opened the chapter here, and I've been running it since then. And last year, after the pandemic, the organization, it's a nationwide organization, and we went from close to 40 chapters to 3
Oh, wow.
through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And the previous owner and I were business partners in another area at one time, and we very close friends, still to this day, very close friends. And she lives in Minnesota, so we have Zoom happy hours. That's how
Yeah.
yeah. And so great relationship. And we just had a conversation about where, the future of Women, Wine, and Wellness and what that looked like. And she has a full-time job, and she loves what she does. She's in a great place with that. And it just wasn't in alignment with where she's at now energetically. And so it is where I'm at. And so we came up with a plan, figured it out, and all of a sudden I am acquired a new business. So
Yeah.
it was not planned that way. But Women, Wine, and Wellness had such an impact on me personally, the community that I live in, the women in the community during the time that I had my chapter. And I just see so much potential in what it can do for the future of communities, especially I believe after the pandemic that people understand the importance of community and having that round table of sitting together and working together and supporting each other and really linking arms to be stronger.
Mhm.
And this, I'm going to share something. This is the first time I'm sharing this piece of something that literally just came to me this past weekend. And I don't know
Wow.
where this is going.
Okay.
But I had this vision of, like we live in, think of like hierarchy, and we tend to like look at each other and compare ourselves. Well, she knows more than I do. I know more than she does, in this hierarchy type vision
Mhm.
and or view, and turning turning triangles into circles. And that came to me, and I was just like, I don't know what this means, but this is something that is going to be really profound with Women, Wine, and Wellness, because
Yeah.
everything I do with Women, Wine, and Wellness is around circles. We have advisory circles, we have leadership circles, everything's around circles. And that came from a wine glass is circle. And we have round tables, events, and it's all about circling together and linking arms and just having the circle piece. I was just thinking about hierarchy and comparison of each other. And I was listening to a podcast or something, and that's what came to me. And I'm like,
Great.
this is powerful. Like, I am so excited about that. So I'm not sure how I'm going to fit that in yet.
Well, it's a great visual too, even if it's just for marketing what you're doing, showing this organization is not about hierarchy, but visually showing
Even our
we're all coming
leadership.
together.
So how that works is other women can come in who have a desire to, create a community within their community and also be connected to other communities,
Mhm.
whether nearby or far away. And so you can become a leader of a chapter. And that is the beauty of it. Is we were talking about systems, the business system, the logistics of it is, I'm actually in the process of setting all that up. And so everything's going to be automated and systemized, and you can customize to your language, like the emails and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's very customizable for you to pull in your tribe. However, it's about creating a leadership that we are at a round table together. We are linking arms, and we are impacting our communities and supporting each other while we're doing it. I mean, and my vision is very like retreats and conferences and that kind of thing all around it. It's down the line. My focus right now is just getting chapters up and going and being support to them. So, but me not being the leader, and I'm doing that in quotes for those of you listening, like leader, I'm guiding and I'm leading, but we're all guides and leads when we're leaders. And so that's a very important piece of Women, Wine, and Wellness for me personally, is that the leaders come in and they are the leaders too. And we just come together and we make and evolve this journey together.
I love that. And I love that the whole message of just joining arms and working together to create something really impactful for not just each other, but for the community.
Another piece of that, just to kind of add to that, is that we bring in a speaker every month that is a local small business entrepreneur, business that comes in and they speak or present on topics. It's an educational stage. It's not a selling stage. I mean, obviously, educating people, you're going to attract people that are going to buy from you, speaking to the business people, but really bringing people in to educate the women in the community around health and wellness. And that could be financial health. I mean, that could be any kind of wellness, health and wellness, whatever that means for you. I mean, in a couple of months, I have a lady coming in that is speaking on financial wealth, and from a place of, living consciously, and like in the way that she speaks is very health and wellness. And she's so excited that she has found an opportunity to speak in front of a group that's who we are. And that's, she's showing up to a group that it's a match. It's an energetic match for her. And so, but giving visibility to our small businesses, and because our local people want to support our local businesses. It gives them an opportunity to have a stage to educate and be seen and heard. And it's important. That's important to be able to be seen and heard as a small business.
What was the hardest part transitioning out of corporate America, starting your own business?
Structure. 100% structure. And there's two sides of that. One was creating the structure, and the other was living in guilt of if I wasn't working from 8 to 5. If sometime during that day I was doing laundry or something, and learning not to get distracted by that. And so, calendar integrity and really understanding structure, as well as understanding I get to do this however I choose and however looks good for me and my family. And if working on a Saturday afternoon feels good, working on a Saturday afternoon allows me a day off during the week to go do something that I choose to do. The Monday through Friday hustle and bustle, getting away from that mindset was probably the hardest thing for me in the beginning. And then once I got past that, then it was like, oh God, well now I have 7 days. And then it was like, that doesn't mean you have to work 7 days a week and get into burnout. I lived in burnout for a long time. And I would say it's only been in the past 3 years of the little bit over 10 years that I've been in business that I've been getting out of the hustle bustle burnout. And it's been in the past year since I learned about human design that I really got out of the hustle and bustle.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I wasn't sure if the 3-year mark was when you learned about human design, but I thought that it was more recent than that.
I hit my wall.
Well, you hit the burnout wall.
I hit the burnout wall, hit it. And I had a breakdown, and I just waking up crying and dreading doing what I was doing every day, even though it lit me up.
Yeah.
I was exhausted, mentally and physically exhausted. It was a lot getting up just to get out of bed every day. And I have in the past struggled with depression, and my family was concerned about that coming on. And I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm just exhausted. Like, nobody wanted to believe me. They're like, you're depressed. I'm like, I'm not depressed. Quit labeling me. I know what it feels like to be depressed, and I wasn't. I was just so exhausted.
Yeah.
And I knew something had to change.
You want to share why it is that happened to you, or what you learned from human design that helped you to move away from that?
Yeah. So 3 years ago, I knew something had to change. And that's where the journey of like, okay, I need to take better care of myself, because I no longer was working out for myself. I was working out at boot camp, and I would work out with clients, or, so I was getting a lot of movement, but it was never about me. It was always about my clients.
Yeah.
Just like a mom with a child, always putting myself on the back burner, saving my energy for my clients instead of, putting me out there, putting me on my calendar. And so I had already been on a little bit of a journey of making some habits and changes. And I went through a whole, went from restricting and over exercising to binging and the pendulum of that, and went through that whole thing and started coaching people around that as I got out of that piece of my journey. And that's where my coaching business started. That's where my coaching piece started. When I brought human design in, or when human design found me,
found you.
Yes, I was like, what is this? So I ran my chart. I looked like an alien to me. I'm like, what is this thing?
Right.
What is this?
What do I do with this?
Weird? Yeah. What is all this information? And so, earlier I talked about that piece of me. When I dive into something, I go head first. I went all in, and I've been all in for a little over a year now. And I found out that I am a projector. I am not meant to work a bunch of hours a day. I am meant to rest and relax and allow for things to come to me, and stop chasing them, and stop thinking so much in my head, and get more into my body that had a whole different meaning. I was already working on being present in getting out of my head and into my body with, through meditation and using my brain tap and, use essential oils. I mean, there's a lot of things I do for my self-care to get into my body and help me stay in my body and regulating my nervous system and I was already doing all those things. I was already into the reconditioning. I just didn't.
You didn't know that was what you were doing.
I didn't know. Yeah. I just knew I was feeling better.
Yeah.
This took me to a whole nother level of understanding. And what I really loved about it is how I was introduced was actually through a business system. Believe it or not, I was trying to figure out what is my avatar? How do I market to my avatar? And it popped up on my Facebook feed. And I don't even know the name of the program because I honestly never even dove into that because human design just swooped me away. And so, I started practicing it with myself and really trying to understand myself and my chart and what it means. And, and that's how I got into it. And then I found another group that was just projectors because I understood we're only 20% of the people. It's very different. We're very magical people. And it's amazing. It's amazing if you're living in alignment with it. And it was very scary to learn to live in alignment with that because, every business coach I've ever had, you got to be on, you got to be on social media. You got to be out there. You got to get out there and network. You got to get, oh my God, that just the thought of that wears me out.
Mm-hmm.
And now if I energetically show up on social media in a forced feeling, this is things that I've learned about myself as a projector. And honestly, I believe anybody coming at with the energy of a forced feeling, you are not going to be heard. I see it so clearly now that I am not heard. The posts don't get a lot of response. It's crazy. I have tested it. And when I show up in this energy of excitement and I've got something to share and I feel that, and that's how I show up, it is very well received. And people respond and they want to know more and they ask questions and they connect. And it's just such a different feeling. It's completely, and it doesn't feel exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
I have the energy for that.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier, this is very brand new, so I'm not going to go into great detail about it yet, but I have aligned with someone in my life over the past little over a year who is, into conscious language, into living consciously and has deeply studied this stuff and breath work and all the things to embody, to the embodiment piece of human design. And where I have the human design, studying that and it, as you know, it takes years to learn. And so we are bringing forces together and coming out with something really amazing. So I'm excited about that. And it's understanding in the past that I felt like I had to do everything on my own and understanding that I don't have to, and I really don't want to. And the energy that is brought when we come together is amazing. It's really amazing. And understanding the generator for those that out there, I need generators in my life and manifesting generators in my life and manifestors. I mean, that helps to energize me. And I'm a mental projector. I like to talk. And that's how I really discovered
interesting
things.
too, because I had not realized that there were these different types of projectors until I met you. And that was the first time I'd heard mental projector mentioned.
Yeah.
And I, of course, was like, well, what is that? So it's really fascinating to hear, and also to hear about your strategy using people as sounding board.
Yeah.
You already know everything. You just need to talk it through. Is that the idea? And you just need somebody to listen.
And I will tell you, I love sharing this story because I've always been that way. However, I have now reframed it and I have a much better understanding of why I'm getting clarity on making a decision is what I'm doing. I talked about going through the whole journey of like finding my confidence and, building my self-esteem and,
Yeah.
that's an ever evolving thing. But one of the things that I used to really beat myself up about was, oh gosh, I got to go talk. I always feel like I got to ask people and talk this through and get their opinion. And in reality, I wasn't looking for their opinion. I was just listening to myself talk. And intuitively, I knew when the decision was made. I just didn't recognize it because I didn't understand it back then.
Yeah.
Now, 100%. And my husband, I'm like, I'm not asking you to fix me. I'm not asking you to fix this. I just need to talk. I need to talk this through so that I can get some clarity and understand it. And I have, my friend that I'm partnering with, I have my mom, and I get to talk things through, get clarity. And I know immediately in my body, okay, yeah, I'm good. I know the decision I need to make. I know the next step I need to make. And it's easy. I mean, it's like that ease and flow I've been looking for.
Yeah, that's
but
incredible.
I don't beat myself up for needing, again, quotes, needing other people's opinions. That's not really what I was doing. It's just what I thought I was doing. And so I thought I didn't have the ability to make a decision. I spent my whole life thinking that. And I was making decisions all along.
Just looking back at your transition, right, out of corporate life into the fitness and the trajectory that you were on, obviously you were making all the right decisions all this time to lead you to Women, Wine, and Wellness, and now your new venture with this partner. That's really exciting, Kerry.
Thank you.
Where can people find you on the internet so that they can follow you and find out about this new venture when it is announced?
You can always follow me at womenwineandwellness.com. All my contact information is there. And then kerrywalshwellness.com is where my coaching business is at the moment.
Great. Well, we'll include those in the show notes. And if by the time this is coming out, there is more information, I'll be happy to share that.
Yes, there should be.
Thank you so much. What a great conversation. What an interesting trajectory you have been on. And I'm so happy to see that you are beyond that burnout and have gained so much insight into yourself, and that you're so passionate about helping others as well.
Thank you. And thank you for seeing that. I received that. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I see you. I know projectors need to be seen, and you are absolutely doing some wonderful things.
Thank you.
My pleasure to have met you, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it.